my friends are synths.
Something that's been brought up a few times recently is the question of whether or not I've moved away from doing videos on synthesizers and music production. Now, I think that this is largely probably because I changed the name of the channel from All My Friends Are Synths. However, I haven't uploaded as much as I usually would this year, and the first videos that I did share at the start of 2024 were primarily focused on my experiments with Super 8 film. Now, I find this whole idea kind of interesting and probably worth talking about a wee bit, because it seems that there are certain expectations or assumptions that people make when you've got a YouTube channel, especially if they think you've built up some kind of audience. One of those being that you can only focus on or talk about a particular niche or topic at once. Much like any creative pursuit, there seems to be this kind of general perspective that the only reason anybody could possibly want to engage in this kind of activity would be to achieve some kind of success in a very particular kind of way. And if you look at YouTube, this does unfortunately appear to be the case for many people. There are very transparent efforts across the board to produce content, and I use that word very deliberately in this context, that will appeal hopefully to the greatest number of people possible, or perhaps more accurately to the all elusive and mysterious algorithm of which we are apparently enslaved. Now, don't get me wrong, if the sole purpose that people have for starting a YouTube channel or making videos is to generate income and have this as their sole occupation, then great. I completely understand the attraction of that, especially as an alternative to the soul-sucking reality of the current job market. I am fortunate enough to be in a position where I have a job that I enjoy, a career that I find satisfying, and which also pays me enough to sustain my various foolish endeavours. However, I'm not judging anyone for their hustle. With that said, when you take something that has, to quote the late great Steve Albini, marginal viability as a business, and then make that your life's work, then the creative aspect inevitably suffers. Something that I find quite sad is seeing the number of people that get so obsessed with metrics or worrying about how to generate the greatest number of eyeballs on their next upload that they get discouraged or put off entirely from doing the kinds of things that they actually want to do. This happens even where there is no realistic possibility of their channel providing a long-term sustainable level of income, because it just seems to be something that you're supposed to do. It's like the standard template from which you can't deviate. This is how you should, make a YouTube channel to be successful. It's bizarre and very disappointing. All of this comes together in such a fashion that we end up with this vast landscape of dull, uninspired content, lacking in any kind of authenticity or originality. And I'm not even saying that anything I do is any better, it's just the way it is. Now, I started making videos on this particular channel because nobody was doing the kind of thing that I wanted to see, and more importantly, it provided me with a means to document the various experiments that I was engaged in. Over time, the act of making videos has become a creative outlet in of itself, and now I actually enjoy the process, much like I would with photography or making music or whatever else, with all of the kind of, struggles that go along with that. It's fair to say that as I've built up more of an audience, then the time that I've invested has become more rewarding. So now people actually listen to and buy the music I make, which never used to be the case before. I get opportunities to try out and feature different bits of gear that I otherwise wouldn't be able to. And on top of that, I make about £100 or £200 a month from YouTube ad revenue and also Patreon, which is all very deeply appreciated. It helps me sustain and develop my passions in a way that I am very fortunate to enjoy. However, if all of that went away tomorrow, then it wouldn't stop me doing any of this, because ultimately that's not the reason why I make things in the first place. One of the most common suggestions that I receive is to split out the different topics onto different channels. And in many ways that might make a lot of sense, but only really if my primary consideration is pandering to the algorithm, which it isn't. If we're being realistic here, if I really wanted to build up a huge subscriber count, then I would be approaching many things very, very differently indeed. For a start, I wouldn't be uploading videos of my own music or artwork, because ultimately they get significantly less views. Despite what people say, they just aren't interested in watching that kind of stuff. There is a clear inverse relationship, actually, between the amount of creative effort that I put into a video and the number of views I get. And to be honest, my most popular uploads on this channel, which have made the most money, albeit not very much in the grand scheme of things, are objectively the worst. And I'm not going to tell you which ones, you'll have to go look for yourself. But in contrast, the tour vlogs that I put together when my band went on the road a year or so ago are some of my personal favourites. I think they're great and worth a watch, yet they barely racked up any views at all. In many respects, if you want to be successful on YouTube, it is much easier to just pump out videos daily on topics that are in the cultural zeitgeist, even if you aren't actually contributing anything especially interesting or worthwhile to the discussion, and I'm just not interested in doing that. There are plenty of folks engaged in that activity as it is. Anytime I make a video on a bit of gear or my workflow or whatever else, at least I can say it's because I feel personally motivated and engaged to do so. I find it very difficult to force myself to do anything that I don't want to, especially when it comes to creative, expressive outlets. And the prospect of shifting how I make videos or having to manage multiple different channels just so I can build up a larger audience of people that are then only interested in content that I didn't really want to make in the first place just kind of seems like madness, to be honest. Ultimately, this channel is comprised of a collection of my various geeky interests, and I'm going to continue making videos about music along with whatever else takes my fancy at a particular time. I feel much more comfortable doing so on a channel under my own name, with a variety of different shows under that, like All My Friends Are Synths for music stuff, or All My Friends Are JPEGs for the photo-related stuff, for example. And that feels much more like the kind of idea of YouTube that I'm interested in being a part of, even if ultimately that does mean that it's harder to build up a significant subscriber count as a result. If you do like what I do and you want to be considered as some kind of modern day artistic benefactor, then Patreon is obviously the easiest way to do that. I very much appreciate the support of the folks on there that help me, sustain this ludicrous journey into experimentalism. But equally, I just enjoy, engaging with comments that people leave. Even the abusive ones, actually, that can be quite fun. And it's free. It's free to leave me abuse below. So there is the segue into basically saying like, comment, subscribe. I can't believe I said that. I'm going to delete my channel right now. Goodbye.